All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Beto Paredes. You are here for the bi-weekly Power Mindset. We do these on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Today's the 13th. We got a good subject we're going to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about our website again today. As you know, we do trainings on these days, but also we do a little bit of personal development work. So these are sponsored by the DNA of Success, which is our actual personal development company. Working with Jack Zufelt. You can learn more about that at dnamastercourse.com if you're interested in those things at all. Very excited about where we're at as a company. Most of those that are here are actual reps that work with us. Some of them are, actually just here for the Power Mindset, which is pretty neat. But we try to focus on some personal development criteria, some motivation, you could call it that. Determination's probably a better word, right? And then we usually cover a subject matter that helps in the training process here with our company. So I've got Nathan Campbell on here with me as well. If you've got any questions, he's the CEO of the company. If you've got anything that you'd like to ask, he is manning the question and answer box right there. Nathan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Excited for this, Beto.
Good to have you on here. So we got a number of you on here. Very happy to have you here. It's, something we do twice a week to try to keep everybody focused and motivated. So let's get into today's subject matter. Okay, so our bi-weekly Power Mindset subject this week, well, today, Tuesday, is the power of decision. Now, this is a really important one. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan or not a fan of Obama, our ex-president. There's obviously a lot of opinions about this, and I'm not trying to focus on anything that's political, but he would only wear two color of suits. He had a gray and a blue one that he would wear, and he had several of the same ones. And the reason he did that is because he didn't want to waste the energy that it took to make the decision of what he was going to wear that day, simply to be able to keep that energy, keep that drive, and that focus on the decisions that he needed to make as a president. And that for good reason, for good psychological reasons, because decisions take a lot of energy. And for any of you that are making decisions about anything, for example, in the middle of making decisions for my father, he's elderly, and there's he's moving from a nursing home back to our home. That was a big decision, for example. The decision to continue spending the money as we have on the platform for Decision Doc. Look at that, Decision Doc, made decisions for Decision Doc. That was an expensive decision. There's a wait time that was created because of that decision that we made. Nathan's very familiar with that. He's been here for a couple of years and knows that we hit certain prefaces where we were just dissatisfied with exactly where our engineering was. And so we made the decision to both spend the money and the time and the effort, get another 6 months down the road in our engineering house, because engineering doesn't happen overnight. So those are difficult decisions that we've had to make. But one of the most important things to kind of get clear in your mind is how powerful decision is, okay? What it really means. It seems lightweight at times. It may seem like it's not as important in certain ways. But the truth of the matter is decisions are what drive everything that you're doing on a consistent basis, okay? In the morning, when you sit down and you're focusing on what are you going to do today? How are you going to perform today? Everything concerning those ideas or those modalities are focused on decision. For example, I'm getting back around to working out every morning. Okay, Nathan actually works out every day. He's an inspiration for me. He's a great God, and I'm trying to get my focus back to where I can get my fitness back under control. What that is every single morning is a decision that has to be, all right. Am I going to decide to do HIIT training? Am I going to decide to do 100 push-ups? Am I going to decide to go jogging? Those decisions are going to basically put me into a laborious situation where I'm working out, okay? I know I need to. And I can also sit in indecision and just, I need to get there. I know I want to get there. And another thing that, Tony Robbins says, and I've got a little quote in here by him. You hear me talking about Robbins a lot. I like him a lot. But he said your shoulds have to turn into must. I should work out. Well, I must work out. There's a big difference in that criteria. I should make 100 calls today. Well, I must make 100 calls today, right? The decision that you make is taking up the energy that you've been given for the day. If you make it the right way, in the way that you want it to, every time you make the right decision. Okay, it's very important to understand what I said. Because you can sit in indecision, and the truth is you waste just as much energy in indecision because you're constantly fighting with the facts that you should have made an A, B, or C decision. So let's go ahead and read these quotes, and we'll talk a little bit more about this subject. So using the power of decision gives you the capacity to get past any excuse to change any and every part of your life in an instant. Okay, and we'll talk about what that instant means. That's Tony Robbins. Decision is a sharp knife that cuts clean and straight. Indecision, a dull one that hacks and tears and leaves ragged edges behind it. Gordon Graham. That is one of my favorite quotes ever. So we'll get talking about that a little bit. So truly successful decision making relies on a balance between deliberate and instinctive thinking. Malcolm Gladwell. So let's kind of start with this first quote just a little bit. Once you make a decision, there isn't really anything else to consider. If I'm going to make 50 calls today because I've decided that's what I'm going to do, the only thing left to do is to make those 50 calls. If I decided I was going to work out today and it's 5 a.m., 5:30, and I got myself up, I got my shoes on, and then I decide to go ahead and do it, well, there's nothing else to be done. It is within an instant. This decisions give you the power within the moment to be able to accomplish the things that you need to accomplish immediately. It's the indecision part of that process that causes us to feel like things are burdensome, to feel like there's a huge weight that we're carrying, to feel like we can't get around to things, like it's just too much to do. The more capable you are of making quicker decisions about how you should spend your focused time, the faster you're going to be able to get through the process of getting the things done that you need done in the day, okay? And if you've ever had a day where you've made good decisions, like, for example, you got sick of being lazy, okay? I don't care how many of you are on this call right now. If I say, hey, do you have days that you're lazy and you don't raise your hand, you're a liar, okay? It's simply part of the human cycle and how things work. Sometimes our bodies need a break, for example. But the reality is, if you can not argue with yourself and decide to do the things you know you need to do, okay, here's what we do. Let me tell you what we do a lot of times. Cold calls, let's just use that as an example again. I'm going to make 30 cold calls today. Well, guess what? I'm going to hit secretaries. I'm going to hit, answering machines. I'm going to have some people that are mad I called at all. There's going to be an emotional kind of drama involved in making those calls, for sure. Either that personal from the idea that I can't get a hold of anybody, or actual in the idea that someone may be upset that I called them in the first place. Much easier to be like, well, I'm not quite ready to do that. Let me fix my emails. Let me get that email perfect that I plan to send to everybody. Let me go through the process of maybe writing some standard operating procedures. And, all these things are important. Okay, the problem is there's a hierarchy of importance of things that you need to do on a consistent basis every single day. And we normally choose the things that are below the threshold of discomfort, okay? For example, I didn't work out today, right? I chose the opportunity to sit at my desk earlier than normal and get a few things done with my team. And I feel accomplished because I did some things, but that was really below the threshold of the decision I should have made, okay? And so where our laborious inabilities come from and our frustrations come from is that we feel like we're staying busy because we're making decisions that are below the threshold of what we should really be doing. Normally, it's the more difficult decisions that we're trying to make on a consistent basis that we're probably trying to do. And it's the ones that we're procrastinating against, okay? I've worked with tons of sales guys, okay? I've operated and trained so many of them, okay? There's a third of the requirement of being a salesperson is that you understand your product and that you're motivated to sell it, okay? A third of it is that you're good at conversation and you know how to posture and you know how to be patient. You know when to talk and when not to talk, okay? So communication skills, a third of it, okay? But that last third is where everybody messes up. And it's one of the reasons why you'll see some salespeople that aren't the brightest, no offense, that are just crushing it and you're not, because they figured out that last third, and that's persistence and frequency, okay? You got to make the 50 calls. Say it's a numbers game, and I've never been a fan of just saying, oh, it's just a numbers game. It's like, well, you can call people and say all the wrong things for the entire day, and those numbers didn't really count, right? You got to do it right. But my point is, if you make the decision to do the more difficult part of your process, what are you going to do? You're going to make 50 calls today. You're going to make 50 calls tomorrow. You're going to make 50 calls the next day. You're going to end your week, and you're going to say, hey, I made 250 calls. I made 300 calls this week. Okay. If you didn't do that, but you did a whole bunch of other busy work, and Friday comes and you're asking yourself why you don't have enough opportunities, it's probably because you didn't go to the top of that decision threshold and make the harder decisions, okay? Because that's where the successful people spend their time, is making the decisions that are more difficult decisions. Like, for example, staying fit, for example, takes a lot of effort in the gym. It takes a lot of effort. For me, it'd be HIIT training in front of the TV, right? That's what I try to do. But I constantly fall short of that. What I'll do later is I'll go on a walk. I'm like, yeah, I'm going on a walk because I know I need to get some exercise. So I'll go do this easier thing that's related to the idea of getting fit that does probably make me feel a lot better, does help, but it's not at the top of the threshold. We have to get used to making those decisions on a consistent basis that are at the top of the threshold. And you got to realize what a decision is. Okay, when Tony Robbins talks about them being in an instant, let's go into what Gordon Graham had to say about it and talk about what the difference is between really making a decision and not, okay? Again, I'll read. Decision is a sharp knife that cuts clean and straight. Indecision, a dull one that hacks and tears and leaves ragged edges behind it, okay? Just to be thinking about something that you need to accomplish, okay? At times, you certainly need to be tactical and strategic. You got to make a plan, for sure, no doubts. Going blind sometimes is better in some ways. I always say frequency over precision, simply because you got to get your momentum going. But of course, it's always best to be precise, okay? When we spend too much time getting precise and practicing and preparing and developing, okay, and believe me, I'm a developer, I'm an engineer. So, I live in this chin scratching mode of, am I spending too much time? Do I need to go to market? Okay. Which, for those of you that are here that came to our event on the 6th, we've gone to market. Pretty exciting. So the reality of it is, when you're in indecision, it's because there's a decision that you should be making, okay? If you're blind to it, okay, well, then you're blind to it, right? There's some people that don't make very hard decisions, but they don't get very far in life either. They may be happy, heck, maybe happier than us motivated individuals, who knows? But the reality of it is, when you know you need to do a certain thing and you're not doing it, it'll just take your energy and rip it to shreds, because you're going to spend the same amount of energy. You guys listen very closely. You're going to spend the same amount of energy in indecision as you will in post-threshold decision activities, okay? It's the same amount of energy. So you're either going to wear yourself out because you didn't do certain things, or you're going to use that same energy to do the things that in decision for. Again, reading what he said, decision is a sharp knife. You get right to it. It's immediate. How do you know you're acting on your decisions? Because you're not thinking about them anymore. You're acting. Okay, it's like Robbins talked about. It's in an instant. You want to measure out whether or not you're being successful with better decisions? Make more decisions and follow through on those decisions, and try to stay at the top of your threshold when you do it. Okay. So, indecision, a dull one that is a dull one that hacks and tears and leaves ragged edges behind it. Everybody on this call, I know of a few of you actually, you know what that means. Okay, you know what that means. I deal with it all the time. Okay, when things become sensitive, decisions can be difficult, and you end up in indecision. Like me trying to figure out things with my father, I got to stay sensitive to that. I can't just crush it like I can in a sales environment, right? So it becomes complicated, and indecision can end up making you depressed and stealing your energy and making you wonder if you can even make it through things, because man, it burns just as much energy as making the right decision and taking action. Okay, make sure you remember that, because that's the key to this. Okay, you're gonna waste just as much energy in indecision as you will post top threshold decision, but you're gonna get better results by following through on those decisions. And the way you know that you're in the wrong side of that, you're on the wrong side of that fence, is if you're sitting around saying, I coulda, shoulda, woulda. Today I said I was going to A and I didn't, but it's okay, because I'm going to do all these other things and I'll get to that soon. If that's going through your mind, you made a mistake. The decisions that you make should be supported by massive effort. Okay, you should feel that your entire state is involved in the process of going forward with that decision's requirements. For example, making 50 calls today, staying quick between calls, making my notes quickly, getting right back on the phone, making sure I'm keeping good time, good time, good time, good time. It's like I've told Nathan all the time. Okay, business isn't about sprinting because you make mistakes, but it certainly isn't about walking, because when you're walking, the first thing you end up doing naturally is you sit down, you take a break. You want to jog. Business is a jog. It's a pace. You keep a good pace. You keep a good pace. If you've made the decision to communicate with the business that you're in, to communicate if you're working with us with practices and labs, and you're going to do a lot of that today, right? Let's say 30, 40 calls, whatever you decide your threshold's going to be for the day. What else is there to think about and talk about other than to do it, and to do it with a good pace? There's no arguments. And that indecision is going to try to pull you down the whole time. Make 10 calls, you didn't make 50, it's already pulling you down. I need to go do this standard operating procedure. I need to answer these emails, right? You're going to be pulled into decisions that are lower than the threshold that you were trying to meet. Okay. It's important to stay there. All right. So truly successful decision making relies on a balance between deliberate and instinctive thinking. Malcolm Gladwell. Okay, so what is that? Deliberate would be, I'm going to make 50 calls no matter what. Instinctive would be to understand that in your business environment, there's a certain approach that you need to develop, right? I make 50 calls. I learn from everyone I'm speaking with. Instinctively, I realize I need to make some adjustments, okay? So you're still making decisions about precision, okay? The instinctive side of yourself will literally help you be more precise as you learn your way through things. So it's not that you're not deciding to be more accurate, more organized, and let's just say with better presentation, okay? But you really have to stay in that deliberate space to where no matter what's going on there on a daily basis, what are you getting done? One of the things that me and my staff used to sit around and talk about back when Jared was working with us, Nathan, is we'd say on Friday, what did we get done this week? We wouldn't do it by the month. Okay, doing it by the month, you give yourself too much leeway. It's 30 days. Okay, and for those of you in business, months go by really fast. I agree. But if you look at the end of your week and say on Friday, how many deals did we close? How many discoveries did we open? But really, the most important is how many signatures, how many deals did we close? You want to be measuring by the highest potential result that you can possibly do. And so if you're doing in that and you're calibrating, what you'll realize, no matter where all the rest of your decisions lie, there's a certain threshold that you need to be keeping in communication, because no matter what else is going on, what do you really need? You need sales, you need deals, you need things closing. And that should be driving all of the decisions that you're making, and everything else that's primary and secondary to that should be falling underneath it. So you want to keep your instincts clear about how you're moving through time so that you can get better and more precise about what you're doing, but you have to stay deliberate and not get caught up in would be considered analysis paralysis, okay, which I know some of you know that term. It's useful here. And you're just trying to better everything and make it nicer and more attractive, where you got to kind of do that as you move, right? You got to kind of have that velocity going while you work on the precision that you have. And if you have to pick one over the other, velocity is better than precision, only in that it gets you into the mode that you need to be in as you develop and become more instinctive about the things you're doing and become more precise. So that is our mindset, power mindset for today. I hope that was useful. And then we're going to do a little bit of training. I decided today what we're going to talk about is how to navigate our website, how to use our website for folks. We have a number of brand websites that can become useful. The Beto Paredes Family Company's website is probably one of the best presentation websites, simply to let people know who we are. We've maintained an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. In fact, we have that on 2 of our companies. You go into our testimonials, and these are really some of the most powerful people in the world. And we got a lot more testimonials. We've just kind of kept this kind of cleaned up to the ones that matter. For those of you that know Sean Hall, there he is on my testimonial page. So that's a good place for people to kind of take a look at. They check out our organization, our executive staff. Another place that's probably of interest at times is just my personal bio. Guys, I've been in this industry for so long. I cover a lot of the stuff that I've done here in my bio. And so that's a great place to check things out too. But from here, we kind of have our our medical technologies division. We give a little bit of information on that, and then we go into our projects. For those of you that are selling for us, it's familiar, especially if you came on the 6 with clinical speed, rapid response diagnostics, monetize 365. And then we have our platforms. So we have our brands and we have our platforms. So all of that's very visible on the Beto Paredes family of companies website. So it's kind of an easy place to kind of do a general introduction for folks. A couple of them that you may not be super familiar with is MedWorld One and Dealfire CRM. These are projects that aren't necessarily currently in our sales platform, but these 4 currently are. And so you can get around to our projects on here pretty easy as well. If you go to brands and divisions, you can get to the other websites as well. Let's go ahead and kind of take a look at that. Decision.ai, Decision.mx, Rapid Response Diagnostics. This is a great site to take people to if necessary. This is the one that kind of breaks down all of the rapid response virtual platform work that we're doing, which is the most exciting stuff for us right now, and then really we're focused on. Hopefully you guys are focused on with us as well. But it's a good idea to introduce them to our site. We keep our press here as we continue to put up press. We need to be a little bit better at putting more up as well as keeping it updated. But our press is here. We try to keep some blog posts going on a consistent basis as well. And so, there's a lot to check out on our site. And if anything, reputation-wise, it's important for people to know who they're working with. And we got a great rep. We've been in business for 22 years, and we've done a lot of projects in marketing and for the last 12 years in medical. And so, it's a great place to kind of love who you're working with. Well, we represent Beto Paredes family companies. We've been around for a bit. And we've got a really, really good background, and it's worth spending some time on our site to kind of learn more about that. You can go from there into specific brand divisions. I'll probably train a little bit more on that on some more of our power mindsets. We do these every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and try to keep it down to a reasonable amount of time. And so that is my power mindset for today, guys. If there's any questions, concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Mostly the best way to do that is at Nathan@BetoParedes.com. Nathan will kind of filter that out to who it needs to get to. And we appreciate you guys jumping on, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.